Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Halo Forge Epidemic. This is PsychoDuck here with another Halo 4 Forge tutorial. This one is going to be looking at spawning. So of course we are covering all the aspects of, the basics of Forge over the next few days, and we are covering all the game modes, but of course it's important that you know how to set up spawns on your map before you can really start setting up the game modes. So here we go, we're going to hop into Forge in just a second here, and I'm going to just walk you through the basics of setting up spawns. It's very similar to how it was in Halo Reach, if you are familiar with that, but for the rest of you, I hope this helps. Alright, so I'm just going to walk you through how to set up some spawn points and, just spawns in general in Halo 4 Forge. And it's pretty simple, so of course, you get these by default on your maps. And you'll probably want to get rid of those, but basically, so here, if we were just to set this area up, to have, two teams, you would have, multiple initial spawns per team, depending on how many players you want. Obviously, if you want to have like a big team map, you're gonna want 8 initial spawns per team. So then you would set these to, defender, pretty simple. And then you would do the same thing for attackers. Really straightforward. You don't have to label them at all. It's just that simple. So, you'd have a couple of those for attackers. And, of course, you would want a few neutral ones also. And these you can, in fact, label as free-for-all spawns if you go into Slayer, but if you leave them as just a neutral spawn, that'll work for you as well. And this of course can all be done from basic editing. Of course, I could have gone into Slayer to kind of show you the same thing. So then, you'll want respawn points. You'll generally want to have these kind of placed, somewhat in small clusters, in small groups, so you can spawn by your team. But it's pretty simple, and of course you wouldn't want them out in the open quite like this. And in the future, with more competitive forging tutorials, we'll be showing you a bit more about how to actually design your maps from a spawning perspective. This will just be showing you how to set them up. So there are a few different types of respawn zones. You have your standard respawn zone, and of course you can change the size of this however much you want. So if basically if this spawn zone is set to defenders, which is red team, and there's a spawn point outside of it, then you're never gonna spawn over here, because there's just too much weight on the spawn points inside of the respawn zone. Now, if this was a weak respawn zone, it would be different. Then it would, it would be certainly more likely that you would spawn on these spawn points, but it would not, force you to spawn on those. So, you use regular respawn zones. Any spawn point outside of a respawn zone, if you have respawn zones on the map, the spawn points outside of them will never be used, so make sure you don't have that. But if you have weak zones, so say you want to put a weak zone in a base to put more weight there, so there's more influence for players to spawn in their base, that's a viable option. Of course, anti spawn zones work the same way. It's just the opposite. So you would have, if I wanted to take weight off of this spawn point, I could just put an anti-zone over there, and then of course if I wanted to just completely force players not to spawn there, so maybe if I really just didn't want the attackers to spawn on this side of the map, I could just put an anti-zone over the entire thing. Of course, it would probably be simpler just to put a respawn zone labeled for the attackers on the other side of the map. But it's up to you. So that's something you can do. And of course, in most Slayer modes, you'll want to just have dynamic spawning on your map most of the time, which means that you can spawn anywhere on the map. And of course, static spawning then means that you can only spawn on your half of the map. And what you'll want to do likely is set up static spawns for game modes like Capture the Flag, but you will not need them in Slayer unless you choose to have them. So it's actually really straightforward. There's not a whole lot to keep in mind or worry about. And it's pretty simple. So of course you can also do these safe boundaries. And if you're familiar with Halo Reach, you'll know exactly how these work. Basically, if I put a safe zone here, then everything outside of that safe zone is instant death. So if I want my map to just cover this area, I can put a safe zone over it. Of course, a soft safe zone just means there is a soft kill barrier outside of it, meaning that you have 10 seconds to return to the safe zone. So that's up to you. And then of course kill zones work the same way. If you walk into a kill boundary, you die. If you walk into a soft kill boundary, you have 10 seconds to leave before you die. So it's all pretty straightforward, and that's pretty much everything with spawning. It's pretty straightforward. So again, if you guys want to discuss this or ask questions, we'll have this posted in a thread on the 343 Industries community forum, so you guys can ask questions and get some feedback on that. But other than that, it should be pretty straightforward, and you'll want to use this in every game mode. You'll have some spawns to some extent, and of course in the individual game modes we'll cover exactly what you may want to do with these spawn zones to work for that specific game mode. So anyways, this has been Psychoduck with the Halo Forge Epidemic. Stay tuned for more Halo 4 Forge tutorials. We'll be cranking these out for every game mode, and I hope you guys find this useful. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.